It is the kind of revelation that makes people stop and question whether the money they have saved over a lifetime is really as safe as they believed. Because across the United Kingdom, troubling reports are emerging that 2025 could see the introduction of some of the most restrictive banking rules the nation has ever experienced. And what makes this all the more unsettling is that the people likely to be hit hardest are not wealthy financiers or multinational corporations, but ordinary pensioners, men and women who have worked all their lives, contributed diligently to the system, and now simply want peace of mind in their retirement, only to be confronted with the possibility that their access to their own money may soon be constrained in ways they never thought possible. The warning circulating now is clear yet deeply unnerving. Pensioners should avoid certain banks in 2025 because some institutions are preparing to implement measures that will restrict how much cash can be withdrawn, introduce hidden charges for basic services that were always free, and in some cases apply pressure on customers to abandon physical money altogether in favour of digital-only methods. For millions of older people across Britain who prefer the reliability of cash in hand and the human reassurance of speaking to a real person in a local branch, these impending changes feel less like progress and more like a direct threat to their financial independence. Imagine walking into the same branch you have trusted for decades, only to be told you cannot take out the amount of cash you need, or that new rules now mean you will be charged for a simple withdrawal, or being pushed to install and use a phone app you do not feel comfortable with, or being informed that your branch is shutting down entirely, leaving you with fewer choices and less control. That is not a minor inconvenience. It is genuinely frightening. And the fact that such warnings are being discussed even before the new rules take effect shows that pensioners need to be vigilant now rather than later. Because while this is not about spreading panic, it is certainly about preparation. The truth is that not all banks will impose the same restrictions, as some are already facing criticism for exploring stricter withdrawal limits, while others appear determined to maintain traditional and fairer services. And this creates the urgent question of which banks can be trusted and which might put pensioners' savings at risk as the new year arrives. To understand why such warnings are surfacing, one must look at the steady changes that have taken place in banking over the past decade. Banks in the UK have been gradually shifting toward a digital-first model, something clearly visible in the widespread closure of branches on high streets, the removal of cash machines from villages and towns, and the constant promotion of online and app-based services. For younger people in their 20s or 30s, such changes may not seem particularly disruptive because they have grown up tapping phones to pay or transferring money with the click of a button. But for older generations who rely on face-to-face interactions, physical cash, and the security of holding tangible money, this shift does not feel like innovation, it feels like exclusion. And now, as 2025 approaches, there are suggestions that certain banks will go even further by enforcing limits and restrictions that undermine the confidence of pensioners and leave them adapting to a system that was never designed with their needs in mind. What we are facing here is not a mere adjustment to customer service, a fundamental change in the relationship between pensioners and their banks. Because after years of saving carefully and living within their means, pensioners may soon be told that they can no longer use their money in the way they see fit, but must instead comply with rules crafted by institutions focused more on efficiency than fairness. For many, this feels deeply unjust because pensioners are not demanding extravagant extras or endless luxuries. Their priorities are stability, reassurance, and the confidence that the nest egg they worked so hard to build will be available when they need it most. Yet rumours and warnings suggest that withdrawal caps are on the horizon, rules that could dictate exactly how much money can be accessed each week or month. Picture a pensioner withdrawing £400 for bills, food and basic needs, only to be informed they may only take £200 that week. The issue: here is not solely whether £200 suffices, but the fact that money already earned and saved is being rationed back in limited amounts, stripping individuals of autonomy and striking at the very heart of independence. Alongside withdrawal limits lurks the danger of hidden fees. We have already seen banks attach charges for overdrafts, paper statements, or premium services, but in 2025, the concern is that charges may creep into areas once considered free, such as withdrawing cash at a branch, consulting with a staff member, or even keeping an account open without using digital platforms. For pensioners living on fixed incomes, these so-called small fees are not trivial at all. A few pounds lost here and there represent skipped groceries, less heating, or financial strain where none should exist. And the fact that such charges are often quietly deducted or buried in complex statements only increases. Frustration and mistrust. Even more daunting, however, is the trend toward digital-only banking, a model that banks champion as modern, efficient and streamlined, but which in reality excludes vast numbers of elderly people. Many pensioners in their 70s or 80s do not own smartphones, do not feel confident navigating apps, or live in areas with unreliable internet. And for them, being told banking is now digital only is less about choice and more about being locked out of their own finances. This sense of exclusion is what makes the warnings resonate so strongly, because banking is meant to serve everyone, not just those adept at technology. One might reasonably ask how banks are even allowed to introduce such restrictions, and the answer lies in the complexity of regulation. The Financial Conduct Authority does indeed require banks to treat customers fairly, and rules exist to protect vulnerable individuals. Yet regulations can only go so far, and when banks present their decisions as business efficiencies or operational improvements, regulators find it difficult to intervene, because on paper the language seems reasonable, even when the lived consequences are anything but. Thus, pensioners risk becoming collateral damage in a financial system more concerned with modernisation than inclusion. It is important to emphasise that not every bank is pursuing these changes, and indeed some may use the opportunity to highlight their commitment to serving pensioners fairly. But that is precisely why awareness matters. Pensioners need to know which banks are planning to impose restrictions and which are not, because choosing the right institution could mean the difference between dignity and frustration. The key message is not to panic, but to prepare, to think seriously about where money is kept, how reliant one is on local branches, and whether switching accounts might be necessary if a current provider becomes unfair. The reality is that withdrawal limits could alter long-established habits, such as pensioners who prefer to withdraw an entire pension payment in one go, perhaps £800 or £900, and then divide it into envelopes for different expenses. Under new rules, such practices may become impossible, forcing unsettling changes to routines that provide a sense of security. Similarly, hidden charges may seem insignificant when first introduced, perhaps £1 for a branch withdrawal, but multiplied over the weeks of a year, that equates to over £50, which is no small sum for those living carefully within their means. Then there is the undeniable acceleration of branch closures. Banks are shutting branches across the country at record pace, and pensioners are frequently told that online. Banking will suffice as a replacement. Yet, if you do not own a computer, cannot navigate an app, or distrust putting sensitive financial details online, this solution is no solution at all. It is exclusion dressed up as progress. And while some may argue that technology inevitably advances and people must adapt, such arguments collapse when applied to those who have already adapted to countless changes across their lifetime, moving from post office books to debit cards, from cash-only systems to telephone banking, and now being told they must embrace smartphones or be left behind. At some stage, society must accept that endless adaptation cannot be demanded forever, and that progress should never come at the cost of excluding those who built and sustained the very system now eager to discard them. So what options remain for pensioners? Awareness is the first defence, knowing which banks are considering restrictions and which are standing firm in favour of accessibility. In 2025, there will almost certainly be differences between institutions, and making careful choices could protect independence. Preparation is the next step, considering now whether to move accounts rather than waiting until the last moment, or even spreading money across multiple banks to avoid dependence on a single provider's policies. And finally, raising voices is crucial because pensioners represent a massive and loyal customer base, and banks cannot afford to ignore them if concerns are expressed loudly and collectively through complaints, petitions, or appeals to representatives. History shows that public pressure can change policies, and it can again. While the picture being painted may appear daunting, pensioners are not powerless in this situation because they still possess choices, influence, and the undeniable right to demand fair treatment. If banks are intent on changing the rules in 2025, then pensioners must be included in the conversation, not brushed aside as irrelevant. And so we return to the essence of the current warning. Avoid those banks planning to limit your freedom and choose those that continue to value you. The year ahead does not have to be filled with fear, but it does require vigilance and attention, because the banks worthy of loyalty will be those that keep money accessible, maintain transparency, and respect the role of pensioners at the heart of their policies. As Britain steps into 2025, let every pensioner remember this simple truth. Your pension, your savings, and your independence were hard-earned, and no institution has the right to ration them away through hidden charges, arbitrary limits, or digital coercion. Stay alert, stay informed, and above all, remain in control of your money because you earned it, and no one should ever place obstacles between you and the life you deserve.